Over this 3-day weekend, this is being recorded May 29th, 2019, my family and I went to go see Aladdin, the 2019 live-action version of Aladdin, done by Guy Ritchie and who knows who else. But, this was put forth by the folks at Disney, and I want to know, when are they going to do a sequel to this? Because it was pretty darn good. So I have a kind of review. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. The music was great. The dances were great. Like, everything felt less big. Things felt smaller and quainter, but in some ways I think that's good because you can't do certain things in live action that you can do in animation. I believe that is true. But they went, like, they took a half step towards what the animation, all the zaniness that was in the animation, and I thought that was good. What you can't necessarily always do, that's not true, there's Ghibli movies. I was going to say, what you can't always do in animation that you can do in live action, which they did here, is represent a rich backgrounds. And the scene, I have an image from, I don't even know if it's a scene in the movie or if it's just a promotional image. There's masks, there's like a dagger, there's scrolls on the table, there's little statues, there's quill pens, there's all sorts of detail in there that, if you look at Agrabah in the animated version, it's just plain and empty and vacant, kind of sandy, and there's some show of things being old, but there's not the richness that is represented in this Agrabah, and I really like that. But overall, I'm going to say, again, the music was good. I liked most of Will Smith's performance as the genie. There were a couple things, like his singing of Arabian Nights, that's the song, right? In the very beginning, was not so great at the start, and then it got better, and then progressively his performances were better and better throughout the movie. I really liked how they did the effect on him. I liked that in some instances where he was like showing up on the map and stuff, they made a cartoony version that looked more like the 2D animated, Robin Williams portrayed Genie, and that was really cool. But more than that, I like what they did. Well, hold on, I'm trying to review it. I'm going to say my whole family liked it. Little kids were a little bit scared, which is good, but they're 3 and 5, so that makes sense. My 8-year-old absolutely loved it. My wife absolutely loved it, and she said it was the best thing. We saw this at the drive-in where we've gone ever since, I think, November of 2017, or is that 16, when Black Panther came out. Black Panther was the first thing we saw at the drive-in, and then we saw Last Jedi there, we saw Solo there, we saw a couple other movies there, and then we saw this. And she said it's the best movie that we've seen at the drive-in, which shocked me because she and I both love Last Jedi. We both really enjoyed Solo, but I think she's a big Fresh Prince fan, so I think she really loved what Will Smith brought to the table. And his performance was different from, Robin Williams, which is good because you can't beat the legendary performance that he did. And I thought he brought so much to it, and I really enjoyed it. The new Aladdin, his singing wasn't so great in some places, or like most of the places. There were 1 or 2 songs where his singing was better. And Naomi Scott, who played Jasmine, did a great job, and I really loved Jafar. So I guess I'm going to start talking about the things I loved about it and why I'm saying, when's the sequel going to be confirmed. I'm going to say that because, well, it was a good movie. It was very enjoyable, and I'm like I'm not a big Aladdin fan. I really enjoyed the Aladdin movies as a kid. I discovered there was a sequel. I had to watch that. Return of Jafar is a bomb. And even better than Return of Jafar is Aladdin the Prince of Thieves. Is that what it's called? Or no, the 40 Thieves? King of Thieves. There we go. Which is a great story. And it was interesting. So they made this world more rich and detailed. They gave it a lot of texture. They gave it a very modern skew, which apparently people are complaining about now. Like Jasmine's role being expanded and her being given more to do and more power in the plot. Like, that bothered people. I can't believe that because Jasmine is so cool, but this version of her is even cooler. It's more interesting because she gets to do so much more. Like, her biggest role in the animated movie is, going and flirting with Jafar when she's his slave and he's the most powerful sorcerer and whatnot. To make a space for Aladdin to defeat him, and she might even try to hit Jafar. I can't remember, but then he puts her in the hourglass and she's gonna die. She's gonna suffocate. And in this, that's not what happens. And then at the very end, spoilers, Jasmine gets to be Sultan, which is really cool because she's heir to the throne, and the king, I would think, has the right of kings. He's got the power to change tradition. So why can't he change that one if he wants to? So I thought all that stuff was really cool. Although my favorite part, and my wife loved the costumes, and so did I. Naomi Scott had amazing costumes. She looked gorgeous. Aladdin looked handsome. He had awesome costumes too, for the most part. The joke with the big hat for Genie was great, and that he had really neat costumes. Like just it seemed like an old school production. Some of my favorite movies are. And I've only seen Ben-Hur once, but it left a big impact on me. I've seen Ten Commandments a dozen times or more. I love those old Hollywood movies where they used large amounts of extras and giant sets that they build to fill the audience with excitement and fervor over the spectacle that they were witnessing, because you couldn't get that stuff done ordinarily. And they didn't make like a full return of that, and they used a lot of green screen, which I don't mind at all. Effects are effects. You need to, budget things smartly so that you can get your stuff made. But I loved how big it was and how much spectacle there was. Now, again, I had said earlier that it didn't go as big as like the cartoon, but that's because certain things work in animation that don't in real life. So I understood why they did what they did, but it's to me, it's made up for in the richness of the detail and the texture over everything, all the costumes and whatnot, like I already talked about, and the decor of everything too. I liked the clarity or the clarification that Agrabah is like a port city too. That was really cool, and that opened it up for a lot of things, especially the bookend, which was really enjoyable for me, because I love romance, I love happy endings, and I like how different it was and how it changed the ending where Genie is, again, spoilers, freed at the very end and becomes a human instead of, being a, less powerful, spirit being or mystical being, whatever he is. So that was really cool. I guess he'd be like a djinn of the deserts instead of a djinn of the lamp in the original version. But more than that, my favorite thing about the movie, actually, I was sad that there wasn't enough Iago dialogue. Like he barely talked, but that's okay. He was much less of a character, and I could see them doing that more subdued version. My favorite part of it was actually Jafar and how they changed Jafar's backstory, his age a little bit too, although you can't tell how old he is in the animated version. They just say, "But you're so old, you can't marry Jasmine." But Jafar's backstory, with him coming up as somebody like Aladdin, them having a similar background, but he just pushes himself, he pushes himself over the line in order to change his lot in life. And that's not something Aladdin's really willing to do. But then when he gets the power of the genie, he does, or the power of the lamp, I should say, he kind of edges into that. And the best thing I love about this movie, or I liked about this movie, is that Genie, who should be this, ancient wise figure, gets to be in this movie, and he tells Aladdin, "Hey, like he presents to Aladdin, I'm expecting certain things from you, and you're not that guy. That's really interesting that you have the lamp and that you rubbed it, and that you're my master. But don't drink from that cup that all these other men before you have drunk from, and it's led to their own destruction and ruin," which of course is what ends up happening to Jafar at the end. But it's cool because Aladdin gets this more interesting arc where he says, "Of course I'm not going to do that," and then he slips into it, and then he pulls himself out of it. And I thought it was much more effective because, like in the animated version, it's just like, "Oh, Aladdin's lying to people," or "He's not being honest." Like that's like I don't know how that works, but Aladdin sowing the seeds of his own destruction by becoming more and more like Jafar, and then having witnessed Jafar and having him as a foil for him. So he could recognize the warning signs that he's becoming like this guy who was so bad and so despicable, was really satisfying to me. In conclusion, I guess I would say that this movie was really enjoyable for me because it had amazing looks and it had a lot of heart that I could appreciate. And I think there should be a sequel. I think they should come up with some other conceit that there's other magical stuff in the world. And I'd like to see the further adventures of these characters, even if you have Genie tagging along as a mortal, just cracking wise and stuff, and maybe he's got like secret knowledge that makes him more aware of things. But I would love to see if they did a sequel of this, like what they could do. They could do a Return of Jafar type scenario, and then as for the King of Thieves, I don't know, that'd be cool though. I'd love to see something like that. That's all I have to say about the 2019 Aladdin. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting out of here. Please, if you enjoyed this, give me a like. You can share it. That would be really helpful to me. And if you really enjoy my stuff, subscribe and ring that notification bell so you can get a notice every time it comes out. You can see more of my work at mjmunoz.com. If you really want to help me out, you can go to coffee.com/mjmunoz and consider supporting me. Thanks for your time, and until next time, be well.